Hello everyone, my name is Cassandra and I'll be presenting on the representation of the Black community in literature, with a special focus on the fantastical worlds. The Black community has always struggled to become represented accurately and positively in all forms of media, especially in literature, where the characters' appearances must be written in order to be described, and unfortunately, unless it is otherwise mentioned, many people will assume that that character is white rather than any other identity like Black or Native. Fantasy stories have always contained a darkness aspect for the heroine to fight against and save the world from. This darkness has always been a little too close in representing the Black community rather than just something evil to be fought against and defeated by the end of the story. Our learning objectives in this presentation are 1. The ability to recognize and determine when a piece of literature is negatively or positively representing Black people and their community. 2. To understand what different types of representation can do to the Black community, whether it is how people in that community end up seeing themselves, which some might consider as internalized racism, or even how other people see them, whether they mean to see it that way or not to see it that way. This will all be specific through the darkness and otherness present in these fantastical stories. And the third objective is the ability to recognize how differently Black people are represented from other groups of people, specifically a comparison between the negative versus positive representations. Residential segregation happened when two different races and identities lived in different neighborhoods. In fact, it was an unspoken rule between everyone for white people to live in one neighborhood and Black people to live in another neighborhood, without the members of either group of people moving to the other neighborhood. Each neighborhood had their own resources and opportunities available, which of course depended on the amount of tax money each neighborhood had received. Just this separation helped in the positive versus negative representations of different groups of people, because residential segregation applied to more than just white people or Black people. Asian people lived in their own specific neighborhoods because they were around people who looked like them, and it wasn't all Asians living together. It was more specific to Chinese people and Japanese people and anything like that. Neighborhoods where Black people had commonly lived in were and still are considered as the unknown and the dark areas. Many refer to them as the ghetto or the hood. These neighborhoods seem to be a model for fantasy writers designing the scary areas the hero travels to fight darkness, the unknown, and the evil entity. Many people actually look at these Black neighborhoods as a dangerous area to be in, not to just live, but just to be in. They think that they can get shot, stabbed, mugged, anything can happen here, when this is actually something true of all neighborhoods, no matter who resides in that neighborhood. It can happen in the country, it can happen in the middle of the city, it can happen in the suburbs. It doesn't matter who lives there, it will end up happening. American slavery is another theme which has impacted how Black people are seen and represented in literature. Slave owners used to think that they were saving Black people from their dark skin by enslaving them. They even believed they were saving Black people from eternal damnation to hell and giving them the chance to go to heaven simply by enslaving them and forcing them to follow their own beliefs and practices. In fantasy stories, white people are the heroes. They save the world from darkness, evil, and anything unknown. They were seen as the white saviors we still talk about today. Through these stories, white children get the chance to see themselves fight evil and win, while Black children have to see themselves get defeated over and over again, when in reality, they're taught to fight for their lives at any given moment and reminded every single day why they need to know how to survive in any interaction with any person. When fantasy stories use darkness as the villain and evil to be destroyed, they are conveying the message that Black people are evil, dark, and villainous as well, while white people are the saviors and the heroes. In fantasy stories, this dark presence is used to disturb, to unsettle, and to cause unrest among other people, people who are not dark. This is very likely leading to the readers believing this is how Black people are in reality, emphasizing the stereotype that Black people are loud, unruly, savage-like, and ratchet. This representation leads to everyone, including the community being represented, believing it is how the community is in reality. Darkness needs to be fought against in fantasy stories. It is met with violence. People who hold racist and hateful beliefs against Black people also believe they need to go against the community with violence, which is something we've all seen all throughout history. These negative representations of Black people in fantasy stories enforce those beliefs in acts. These dark and negative representations even go all the way back to the Renaissance era in William Shakespeare's plays. Shakespeare had one play with a Black person as the main character, Othello, and all the other characters who were white held racist and hateful views of Othello. Even in his other plays, where Black people were included, they were depicted as savages and uneducated. An important step in accurate and positive representation in libraries has already been achieved by many people, recognizing the need for representation in these spaces. People know and understand the importance. However, people are still struggling to develop a set of criteria for professionals to follow in order to prevent misrepresentation and negative representation of all cultural groups. In conclusion, representation of the Black community in literature will remain a struggle for a while, especially in a fantastical world. We need to find a way to take the dark versus light imagery away from Black versus white people. Dark fighting light in media should not reference to skin color or someone's race, but rather simply just evil versus good, without making Black people the evil characters. On this poster, I included a couple pictures of books that had Black people included. In Beautiful Creatures, it takes place in the South, and it includes one Black person that I really remember, Amma, and she is the seer that helps Ethan and Lena figure out how Lena can choose light versus dark when she doesn't want to choose between her family that way. A Blade So Black features an African American teenager who is forced to live in a reality where a Black woman was killed over nothing in her neighborhood while also going to a fantastical world called Wonderland and fighting a darkness. I also included The Hate U Give and On the Come Up, both by Angie Thomas, which also feature Black experiences within America. The Hate U Give is what we see pretty much every day, it feels like, especially last summer. Police brutality against Black people, killing a Black teenager, and On the Come Up is basically, to me, feels like more of an explanation on what rap means to the Black community. And the final book I have here is Color Me In. I really identified with that as a mixed person, and it's just someone who's mixed as a Jewish and a Black person in trying to figure out which they best fit in. I've also included a couple additional resources if you're interested in finding more on the Black community and how you can help them. Thank you.